What if the real reason your business isn't growing isn't your marketing?
We see a lot of businesses fail, and so there are cornerstones of overlap on those kinds of situations. I would say 8 out of 10 times the leadership is surprised. They have a really strong indication, and it might be a nuance. Picking yourself back up, what lessons did you learn? They check out their SEO and see how they're, appearing up on AI, because search there is a big component at the moment. I would say be mindful and be intentional. Don't be led by fear, and lean into your gut and your decisiveness.
Welcome to another episode of the Starter Girlz Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding. Wherever you are tuning in today, we are so glad to have you. And I do want to mention this because I say this all the time. It's like our new thing for Starter Girls. So Starter Girls is not just about gender. It's about grit. It's about celebrating the dreamers, the builders, and the difference makers bold enough to start. And as you always hear me say at the end of this episode, everything about what we talk about here is starting and evolving, right? And so I'm going to open up with this today. What if the real reason your business isn't growing isn't your marketing? What if it's misalignment, fragmentation, gaps no one stopped to fix? Isn't that everything really? Like gaps and things that we do? Today's guest helps organizations stop patching problems on the surface and start building systems that actually support revenue, visibility, and long-term growth. She blends strategy with execution, vision with structure, and she's proof that sustainable success is built intentionally. And so you guys are going to get to hear from her in just a few minutes. But before we do that, we do need to do a quick shout out to our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Productions. Need to add excitement to your YouTube videos or some expert hands for editing? Look no further. Walt Mills is the solution you've been searching for. Walt is not only your go-to guy for spicing up content, he's the force behind a thriving film production company with numerous titles in the pipeline. Always on the lookout for raw talent, Walt is eager to collaborate on film and internet productions. With a background deeply rooted in entertainment and promotion, Walt Mills leverages years of skills to give you the spotlight you deserve. Want to learn more about Walt and his work? Head on over to waltmillsproductions.net and let your content shine.
And with that, I do want to make a mention to head on over to startergirlz.com. I tell you this every single week. And why do I say that? For 3 reasons. 1, because if you have missed an episode, it is a great place to catch up. It's also a great place to sign up for our community newsletter, and you can stay in the know of all these fabulous episodes that go out. And then also, if you are an aspiring creator, an entrepreneur, or maybe you're in the thick of it right now and you want to know what your number one success block is that may be hindering your success, well, guess what? I've got you covered. You can go over there and take my 2-minute quiz, and it will tell you exactly what block may be affecting your success right now. So as I always say, head on over to startergirlz.com and do your thing. All right, my guest, so exciting. I've had a lot, I guess, fun chatting with her and getting to know her. And she's just got great energy, fun personality, all the things. I think you guys are going to be delighted to hear from her today. Zephora Haddon, a marketing and operational strategist with over 20 years of experience helping organizations strengthen their brands from the inside out. She partners with businesses to align their messaging, streamline operations, and turn scattered marketing efforts into cohesive, scalable systems. From website development and SEO to integrated communications and customer engagement, she creates customized action plans that close the gaps between visibility and revenue. And what sets her apart is she doesn't just market businesses, she builds the foundation that allows them to grow sustainably, which is one of my big words, sustainability, right? We love that word. So Zephora, welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Jennifer. Wow, I do a lot of stuff. That's a long list.
I know. Aren't those intros fun?
It was great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and you look super cute today. Love the glasses. You just got it working today. It's all looking good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So just a little skinny on these bios. It's so funny because I think I always tell people, and the people that have been following the show, they hear me say this like over and over and over. The reason that I do this is because my background, having been in Mary Kay all the years that I was in, we always had to do accolades, and we did it because it's sort of when we would read other people's accolades, like, doesn't it feel good when somebody like says, hey, this is the things you did?
All the studies show, and I'm always trying to remind myself this and my team we have over 50 on our team, but that people like accolades and compliments and those things more than they do dollars. They say they prefer to have words rather than I don't know if that's exactly true, but I do think it's an interesting sentiment that people want those pats on the back for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I do. And I will tell you this for a true story. So I run a networking group here that I started. I run it with another partner, started in July. And it's so funny because majority of the people in my group right now are men that are coming in there. And I'm talking all ages. I'm talking young all the way, to mature in there. And you would think, I mean, when you think about you think men don't really care, like they would be more inclined to want to have like the numbers and the digits and all that. I operate that meeting pretty much like the way I operated my meetings in Mary Kay for 20 years. And what I mean by that is we do recognition, we celebrate wins, we do all, and you
Gremlins have those great stage performance, big events because they're so highly regarded. And
you will laugh because I'm telling you, every week we start off with, okay, let's celebrate wins. What do you got this week? Personal, professional, stand up and share. And they have no problem standing up and sharing their wins. And I will tell you what's funny is the clapping part, because I make them stand up when they talk and I make them clap for each other. And they're like, this is so weird. But there's this all kind of goes hand in hand. There's some kind of, I feel like, energy that comes from that. And I think it's no different when we read these bios. I think it just really, it sets the foundation for, hey, we're going to have a great episode because we kind of laid the foundation and got everybody excited about who we're talking to, and then it makes you feel good too. So it's a win-win all the way around.
It's often you don't hear your own kind of bio very often, and I've been doing that, as you outlined, over 20 years. And we have a fantastic team that does a lot of really great things. So it's nice to hear it and just feel like, oh yeah, we do a lot of stuff.
So you are doing great things, and I love it. I love the energy that you guys have over there too, and I'm always a big fan of women that are rocking whatever it is that they're doing. I think the world makes it a better place when we're all succeeding. And I think
we work hard to build a great team that's really positive. I think when you're a CEO or president or founder, whatever you call yourself, of an entity, it's really important to make that culture strong and positive. And I always say that if the leadership puts the energy into the people, then the money comes, the money flows, so.
Amen, sister.
Be intentional about providing support to the teams so that they can provide support to the clients and they feel supported and empowered to do their jobs effectively. So that's a really key ingredient.
I agree with you on that. And that's a very important topic that comes up quite a bit in culture when we're talking about creating those environments. Because there's nothing like working for a company where the people are not treated well, and then it really does. It spills off into, and it not only just even in the work environment, it goes home. It goes outside of that too. So,
our team members stay with us for a long time. I think it's part of that. We do things like rotating Fridays off and really putting, I want to say mental health, but just quality of life, in the forefront. I have to bite my tongue and say, listen, I know that this is just a job, and it's important that we give our highest and best and really serve the clients in all the way possible. But at the end of the day, this is not your life. This is a piece of life that's for you. And it's really important for leadership to remember that it's my life. I love it. It's what I do all the time. My people are very invested and do amazing work. But there's other things going on, and that's got to be, they have to have permission to live the rest of their life. And we do not micromanage when they need to take breaks or book appointments or whatever they have to do so that they feel like they're a human in their job, so it's important.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that. I love that. I think it's important. So, okay, so we're going to talk about your journey, kind of what brought you here, because I always love to start off with that, because as you know, I'm a storyteller, and everything I do in this podcast is really about helping people thrive in life and business, all the things financially, careers. We obviously talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and creators. And so that's probably a lot of people that are listening to this, but I really believe that a lot of these messages are told through these stories. And so I always love to start off with kind of how we got to where we are, because this is the fascinating thing, I think, to people. It's like people with their backgrounds and they're like, how did they get here? So I would love to know, were there any pivotal moments that led you into this? Did you know that you were going to do this, or kind of how did this work evolve for you?
It's a good question. I haven't really thought about this for a long time, but, I got a divorce. That was it. So I had a divorce, and then I had two of the sweetest sons ever, and I wanted to spend time with them. And I was in Boca Raton, and I had visions of doing publishing in New York City and working in other various spheres. But I always tell my friends now and the younger women that I mentor, saying, should that be a space where you land yourself, make sure you're in the city you want to be, because not every city is really great for business. So I was kind of stuck here, and I had to create something. Now, luckily, I had started small ventures on my own throughout my life. I had my first when I was 18, so kind of moved through there. But I had to start something because there was no industry in Boca 20 years ago that would allow me to make the money I needed to give my children the life that I wanted to provide for them, and be present. So it was definitely about starting my own business, and I started consulting and doing this business consulting to start. And then I found that filling some of the holes in that process, like website builds and search engine optimization, were things that I outsourced and managed, but they weren't done in the excellence that I demand. So we raised the bar pretty high. And so it was necessary for me to kind of expand and keep increasing my services. And so we became a full digital marketing agency, which has since evolved even beyond that, which you don't foresee coming. So that's basically the genesis of how I got rolling.
I'm curious to know, and this ain't even in my questions, but I would love to know this, like, what was the time span from the time you started, kind of did this sort of, on your own to building? Obviously, I'm assuming you're still growing and scaling, because that we would not be doing either. We're not doing that, right? But I'm saying until you say, you really started to get to a place where you're like, okay, I need to get people on my team. I mean, what was the time frame on that?
Well, it's, it's a great question because it was an evolution. I say that I was kind of in just not survival mode, but just base existence for the first 8 years or so until my boys got a bit older, to keep the lights on and keep hockey flowing and all the expenses that had to go until I really build the business. When they got more self-sufficient, I was able then to say, okay, now how do I put more time and effort and energy into my company? Sure. So it was about 8 years of just keeping handfuls of clients together to make what I needed, because being physically present was important to me. And we now, as women, as parents, but predominantly as women, let's be real, it's really hard to have that balance. And I do believe you can't have it all. You have to, I would be at a different place in my career if parenting wasn't such a big deal to me, and that's not to chagrin anybody who's taken the reverse approach. I mean, we have to do what we have to do, but you have to balance it. And that was why it kind of was scaled. So the last 6-7 years specifically have been an exponential growth as my older ones are in college, and life goes on. So yeah.
And you don't even need to explain that, because I get it. I mean, I get it. We got other listeners, but I totally get it, because that's been my whole platform from day one. Is like I started my initial journey when I went into the network marketing space in '99. My oldest was 2 years old. So, and I was a stay-at-home mom the entire time with those kids. I mean, pretty much still, like, now I don't even know what to do, because I joke now, like, if I had to go back to work to get like a real corporate type job. I mean, I did do some corporate before I had kids, but if I had to go back and do that now, I don't even know that I would be a great worker. I think I would suck, because I think they'd be like, you got to show up. And I'd be like, what time you want me there? Like, no. But I get it, because my priority was always about my children. I always had that on the side, and I did very well. I mean, I earned cars in the company. I did do okay, but I was never... There's always an ebb and flow. I mean, I always had to think about, if I do this at this level, am I willing to do that and compromise this? And then later for me, it became kind of my health, because I ended up getting diagnosed with a really rare condition. And so now that's sort of, my kids are grown. So that is sort of my I don't want to say precursor, but maybe my like hinge that I get hung up on sometimes is, how hard do I want to do something? Because I get scared of that, and like, that's got to be in the forefront. So my point to this is, I get it. I get what you're talking about, and I would say congratulations for sticking through that.
Thanks.
That section.
Yeah, it was really hard. There's a lot of fear. I too took a corporate job for, 6 months here, a year there. And I always kind of came back and kept clients on the side. And I always came back to, wanting to do things on my own. And our business model has always been remote. So that's always been, an easy way to make sure that I could try that out. But like you're just articulating, I would get to the, I was a VP in a company, and I would be like, this is just not the way I like to roll. I'm all about, there's not enough systems, there's not enough structure. I want to run this baby, and so it was always kind of reverting me back to don't be a deer in headlights and with the fear, because it's scary, when you're on your own. And utilize that. I'm a big believer if you have these intense emotions, whatever they are, you can kind of morph them. So this feels like fear, but let me turn the boat around and turn that into excitement or drive, and it doesn't have to be this positive feeling that you work with. You can turn a negative or a challenging emotion into some strength, So you just kind of use that same energy level, and that's always really worked for me. So
yeah. So how big is the team? Like, what's your team look like now, size wise?
Now we're 50 plus. I say plus because so it's great. We've got 18 developers and SEO team, and which is a big now because of AI, making sure we're incorporating all of those. We've got project managers, of course, who oversee, I call them the ringleaders, so the circus masters that make sure everything's happening. We operate quite differently as a digital marketing agency than others in terms of you have a whole team. That's one, difference maker with a project manager that you can work through, but you also have access to your web dev, your SEO, your newsletter people, your bloggers, your copywriter, so that you can make sure that, because this is your baby, your business is your baby. We fully respect that. It's really all about that integrity and respect for your business. And so that you can reach out to people individually, or you can go for your project manager. So that's one difference maker. The other is we don't work on contracts. So that, people don't feel like they have to get locked into a 12 months, or longer. So that's another piece. But yeah, so we've got our project managers, SEO, devs, and all of those components that go in there as well.
Yeah, and I will say this for anybody, listening. I know we're going to talk more about some things here, but one of the things I like about you guys that's a little bit different. I've only worked with y'all on a small scale, but I feel like y'all are people-centered, which I like. And I feel, and I say this sincerely, because we all jumped on a phone call prior to even having where we are right now in this conversation, because I've dealt with a lot of, PR firms through the podcast and stuff, not so much for me or for my work outside of that. I've done some digital marketing work, things with different kinds of people. But I will tell you that you guys are different. And I like that. I like that there is that genuine, there's a big picture, I guess, in working with y'all, to me, you seem like you see the big picture. You're looking at this, how do we create the win-win for everybody involved? And that's sort of the way I operate when I'm trying, even like yesterday, just to give you an example, I was trying to work out a situation between my pet sitting business, which is a separate, whole different segment. I feel like I'm like the matchmaker of the pet sitters. Like I match the client. You probably kind of do the same thing in y'all's work, right? You match the client with the SEO, all that. So I match the client with the sitter. And so I'm trying to create this win-win balance for the sitter so that she makes okay money and it's feasible for her. But then the client still feels like they're winning and they're not being overcharged. And so yesterday I'm having these dialogues and I'm trying to create that, because that's how I operate when I do business.
Right? Like
Yeah. I mean, I have rates, I have prices, but I feel like there's always this little bit of ebb and flow gray area, because you can't cookie cutter every single thing. It's just impossible to cookie cutter every single. I mean, you can, but I think then you lose I feel like you lose some of the people touch. You know what I mean?
No, I agree completely. And that's why, I said we had evolved beyond just the digital marketing. I always say it's like a triangle. The digital marketing for us is one side that's all the things done in excellence with all the numbers and the analytics that support the success and the growth for the entity. But the other side is the operational support. I find run into so many times where the digital marketing is sticking and working, but the company might not be answering the phone through and through, or at an 80% answer rate, or they're not utilizing the leads or don't have a script to follow. So that's where we like to take a look, peek behind the curtain and see how we can support operationally. So we make sure that we help with a myriad of things, from hires to strategies in-house and scripts and making sure that the dental office's front desk knows of all the specials that are going on. So they're not like, what? I don't know what that is. So if somebody called. So it's all of those pieces, which is 101 different things. And to that end, that's where we get very flexible and personalized on what an entity requires. And, we've done wrapped trucks and done billboard ads, so whatever, it's a very wide scope. And to that end, that's what's nice about us not being on contracts, because we are earning their business and really being a part of their collaboration with their company.
Yeah.
We're really part of the collaborative entity. And then the third part of that triangle is just the working on a 12-week quarterly kind of growth plan, so that we're not dictating what a win looks like. We're working with the entity to say, well, tell us what success looks like. And it's amazing how you can move the needle when you run a business by just taking 12-week chunks and, moving forward. And then we're able to say, see, we're able to deliver these wins and some. That's always our goal. But also the client feels like they're moving their business forward. And because we help with these other operation pieces, we can really help transform a business over a 12-month period of time. So that's our goal, working in the confines and the parameters that is comfortable with the client.
I like it. It's almost like you guys are a coach in a sense, like you're a coach in this process. It's not just, and I think it's a difference between a consultant and a coach, right? Like you guys are both. You're like the consultant, and it's kind of like what I do in my work. It's like the consultant and the coach, because the consultant just tells you really what you need to do. The consultant just says you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, and check. The the coach comes in and says, what is important to you? How do you define success? Like, how can I be a part of that process and give you guidance, and you can take it or leave it, but how can I be a part of that process, right? And that's how I feel like it's really the best of both worlds, because now, that's what I was saying. I think there's a difference, like when you have that, just here's the contract, here's the price. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think that's just a little bit different approach than if you're really wanting to get in and create a long-term type. It may be a little more work here, but long-term, it's a better sustainable, that word we're talking again, right? Sustainability. It's a longer client. You're putting in the work in the beginning to keep the longer client.
Right. And we do revisit it quarterly. We're sending out now going, what do you want for next quarter? These are our ideas, but what are you thinking? And it's interesting because when we first have these conversations, we'd have some simple onboarding sheets that they fill out. It's amazing to me how many entities don't know what they want by the end of that quarter. They're just, we're just, working the machine, whatever that looks like. And that can be great, but it's hard to evolve and it's hard to grow. And I should add in that we don't pretend to know things we don't know. I mean, listen, there's data and knowledge and stuff, but we love to investigate. So we say, please bring us your challenges too. Like, what are you running up against? And we can find them experts to work with and problem solve and these kinds of things. So we love that too. So that's another piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. And I think there's something great about that too. I mean, if you don't know, you don't know, right? And that's kind of how I am too. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not going to lie. I'm just going to tell you I don't know. I'll get the answer for you. I might have to go look it up or ask some questions, but I'm not going to pretend. I know a lot of things. I just don't know everything. You know what I mean?
And then we bring them back a whole list of options and ideas, and they'll pick and figure out what works for them. But, and that's why we keep our clients for a long time, because that's the evolution. I mean, clients that we started with, I'm going, if your website looks the same 6 months later, there's a bit of a problem. It should be an evolution. And if your systems aren't evolving in your outreach, and then with AI not utilizing the growth strategies that are there, things are missing. So it's important that we work on MOUs, but they change, every 6 months, in terms of what our deliverables will be for that client. If it stays the same, there's a problem. So.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that everything should be an evolution. It's so funny because as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about like every time I have like this functional nurse that I go see, and I go every like 3 months, and she does like all my blood work because things change. And so it's kind of like, I feel like it's sort of like we're talking about your website here, right? Like I'm constantly I have to go in because I do have these weird like health things that she checks, and I'm totally fine, but we just look at everything, markers and all that, and she checks like vitamin D and all that. And it's so funny because yesterday I'm like, oh my gosh, my time's about to come up and I got to go. And I'm like, do I really feel like going? Like, can I just run these blood tests myself? I know what to look for,
Right.
But it's kind of like you're talking about this website. I do it because if I keep ahead, then I can keep up with things, and I'm constantly evolving. And if I need to pivot and turn a different direction, I can. It's instead of it going the other way, right? Like the back behind. And so I feel like, this whole, everything is an evolution that we do, and your website and your business are no different. They're an evolution, and they must be maintained.
And when a site goes live, I'm like, okay, everybody, you have 30 seconds to pat yourself on the back.
And get over it.
So, so let it get vested. So
I love it.
What new landing pages are we creating? What new offerings? What new implementations, et cetera, et cetera. So
it's great. I hear it. Well, a few minutes ago, you talked about, like the gaps, basically, like you provide the website, or you have the funnels or whatever going, and then they're not answering the phones. And I feel like, talk a little bit more about that, because I don't have as big a team now in the capacity. I do have some in my other business, but when I was in Mary Kay, large teams, and I feel like very different business, but I feel like that was a conversation. You'd give them a flyer, right? But then they think the flyer is the end all answer. And I'd be like, no, you got to talk to the people. Back then, it wasn't as much on the internet. It was more, that's the model. It was a lot of face-to-face. And so for us, the gap was, you need to have the conversation. Like, you need to get in front of the people. No flyer is going to bring you the people, And so talk a little bit about that, because I feel like that is an important conversation, in your business. Are you missing the organizational flow?
And that is that. I love just that piece, because you can go on so many tangents with this.
Yeah.
But the bottom line with businesses is we have AI, and it's fantastic. And that means, as such a generic term, it means a gazillion things, right? But, my parents owned a private investigation agency when I was growing up, and it didn't matter what tech came down the pike. It was always boots on the ground, knocking on doors. That's how you get things done. And It's still the same way today, is that we can use tools and technology, but at the end of the day, the business relationships must be there. The work ethic to have the conversations and build the community. It's, probably even more paramount today with the advent of technology, that people want that connectivity. I'm sure we're going to see a bit of a backslide in terms of just automatic outreach and people wanting less. I mean, I cannot stand this self-serve stuff at the CVS or the automatic. I want the personal relationship, and I want someone to help me, and I want to say, hey, good morning, how are you doing today? And I think that's required in business as well. And if you eliminate that, automation making systems stronger for sure, but if you eliminate it completely, I think that businesses suffer.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It really does come down. In fact, I was on a podcast the other day, and I brought this up in another show that I went on. He was asking me, like, because obviously I tell him all the things I got going, and he was like, you got to narrow it down. I'm like, listen, I'm in my 50s now. I don't care. I do what I want. If I want to have 10 businesses, I'm going to have 10. You just got to understand my personality. It's the way I roll, right? I'm not trying to be out there and be like, conquer the world. I'm just trying to enjoy life and like have fun and make some money. That's what I do, right?
We distribute for every 50s woman who says, I'm doing it the way I want now. Like that.
Yeah, and that's it. Right there with you. I'm like, seasons, buddy. That's where I'm at. Seasons, But anyways, I was going somewhere with this, and I wanted to tell you that we were talking about, it's going to come back to me in just a few minutes. I lost my brain there for a minute when I was talking about them. I guess the seasons are important with that. We'll come back to that thought. I'm like, where was I going with that? I had something with video. No, it's okay. It's okay. I do this sometimes, it's all good. So I wanted to ask you kind of on a personal, like moving from the business, and we've said a lot of really great things about the business. I want to talk a little bit about you as the entrepreneur, the leader, that kind of thing. Talked about culture in the beginning. Looking at this whole business, you and as personally yourself, and then the business, how do you feel like, what does the success look like to you now? Because I imagine it's evolved since, like we talked about at the beginning, when the kids were kind of at the forefront. Now the business, you have the flexibility and freedom to do that. So how do you define that now at this point in your life?
Great question. If we're talking about business success, which is different than other realms of success, definitely scaling and growing is important to me right now. And I have my own parameters of growth that I wish to hit in 2026. So we do our own quarterly, Q kind of progress that actually all of our staff are required to contribute to that as well, of how they're enhancing their departments too. But for me, it's hitting those goals this year, building the strong teams, and that would be a successful year for me. As far as the next decade, I have the 5 and 10 year plan, looking at eventual exit strategy and growth strategy for that as well. And, making sure I'm hitting those milestone markers as I go in order to facilitate that.
I love it. And what do you feel like you learned about yourself in all this? This is one of my favorite questions. Like, what's been the big takeaway for Zephora?
I think it's like what you learn every week. But the biggest takeaway is that I can do this. I can do this. And I started out kind of fake it till you make it and learning how to trust your gut, but utilizing, I think what we discussed earlier, like utilizing challenging emotions and turning them into power, and that I'm capable of getting this done and leading a fantastic team. And my team is just the best. I can't say enough great things about them. And I hope it's a reflection of the company ethos as a whole, but definitely that it's anything's possible. It's really determination and stick-to-itiveness and grit. This.
That's why you hear me say that word grit at the beginning. I had, you know what, and I'll tell you a funny story, and this is good for anybody listening. You probably love this. So when I started this whole podcast, I don't know if I shared this with you and Deborah in the beginning, but my friend and I, we were both ex-Mary Kay sales directors. And so the entire premise of Starter Girlz was, if you're starting a business, a brand, or a movement, we're here to talk about it. And we were the Starter Girlz because we were starting a movement. And then my friend went on to do other things. We're still great friends, but she went on to do other things. And I kept the Starter Girlz. And I had no intention. I kind of was doing this whole fake it till you make it kind of thing. I had no intentions of it really. In fact, I put the podcast on hold for a very short period of time and launched another show for a while. And it's out there also on the C-suite now. And today 98 downloads on that show. Like, I haven't recorded anything in that 3 years, and like somebody's downloading the episodes. Anyways, my point to this is I brought it back. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to, use this podcast and I'm going to go target women, blah, blah, blah. Well, then I start looking at my demographics in YouTube and I'm like, okay, we've got like 70% of our listeners are males tuning in to Starter Girlz Podcast. And I'm like, this is interesting. Okay. So what do I do with this? Okay. Well, in the meantime, I get this thing trademarked. I have it so it is trademarked now to the copyright on it. And so I'm like, we got to do something here because I can't like exclusively do this just for women because I'm bringing men. We've got a huge core following. We are touching all sides. And I'm not talking just age brackets. I'm talking YouTube is like 25 to 44. Spotify is females 45 to 50 something. I mean, we're touching all over. And so that's why you heard me in the beginning do the part where I'm like, girls isn't just about the gender, it's about grit. Because what the essence of this show is about grit. It's about getting back up, persistence, tenacity, and really just how do we show people that everyday ordinary people are making different choices to live the lives that they choose to live. They pick them, right? And so
I love that story too, because we talk a lot about like what makes a good leader, because we see a lot of businesses fail, our cornerstones of overlap on those kinds of those situations. But certainly you want to have a strategy, but you don't want to be firmly entrenched in assumptions. So it's staying open to the evolution. Like we love saying to people, well, you might think they're clicking because of this, but let's just, take a look. Let's just make sure we're really looking into it. And I would say 8 out of 10 times, the leadership is surprised. They have a really strong indication, and it might be a nuance, but there's usually something that is striking to them. So you always want to have a strategy, but you want to stay loose and open to, the pivot. So that's cool word, but that's super interesting.
That's a good point. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Because you're right. If you do get it makes me think of what Jordan Peterson said, and something I heard about, like when you get so laser focused on the goal that you kind of miss the things around you. Like what's going on around you, because you're just so like insistent that it has to be this way. And I'm telling you, I'm in this program right now. And one of the things, it's Shermaine Shirzad. He does this whole thing on positive intelligence, and he talks about saboteurs. And one of the things that he talks about is activating your sage brain, which is basically like your creativity, genius, ingenuity, all of that, empathy. And he said, like, there's these different stages, and one of them is like navigate and activate. And activate, I came out this morning, I told my husband, I said, activate is my best one. You know why? Because activate, you ask the question, what needs to be done right now? And so every time I'm dealing with something, it's like I look and go, what needs to be done right now? If this is not working, what needs to be done right now? If I don't like this, what needs to be done right now? That's how my brain is going all the time. And so even as I get systems in place on my business, I will look at something and go, is this working? What needs to be done today?
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like a 12-week plan because it's short chunks and you can make sure that you're always for it. So you sound like you're probably like me, like sitting on the couch watching TV at night is a little difficult unless you're multitasking and, it's good.
What needs to be done right now, right? Laundry, the dishes, the TV. Yes, I'm walking around with the phone. I was listening.
Yeah,
I get it. That's why I like you. You're a mover and a shaker, and you're making things happen, right? Like it just
you gotta be like the shark. There's no sitting still, right? You gotta keep going.
That's right. So, any you said a lot of really great things here. Any advice maybe for somebody right now who maybe they're overwhelmed? They're like trying to move into building. You've done this. You've gone from here to here. They want to build. I mean, maybe it's just a starting position right now. What would you say to them?
I would say, because there's so many things you could say, I would say be mindful and be intentional.
Yeah.
Don't be led by fear and lean into your gut and your decisiveness. Because although I believe in the old adage, when in doubt, do nothing, it's very easy to live there. And so I think that it's important to, as we're just saying, move forward, even if it's baby steps, and follow your gut. And sometimes it's the smallest thing about writing a proposal or writing a page, whatever it is, but keep moving and be intentional with your thoughts and your actions. And that's it, I think, to keep it simple.
It's good. I like it. Good stuff. All great advice. Definitely great. I love the one that I think comes up a lot when I have these conversations is trusting your intuition, your gut with things. And so true. It really is. Yeah. Our logical brain wants to dismiss that all the time and tell us, don't do that or do this or that doesn't feel, I always say, go with your gut, man. Like if you don't like somebody, you just know you don't like them, let it be. Quit trying to force that mess.
So true. And some people don't understand what that means or have a hard time connecting with it because they've been trying to follow the rules or be good for so long or do whatever they're supposed to be doing. So I always look at it like if you need to reconnect with that, when was the last time where you did something or had a response or reaction? You go, I knew I shouldn't have done that. That voice told me I shouldn't have done it. But you tap in with that and kind of reverse engineer it. It can help you become more connected to the what your gut tells you to do. And
I had a moment just like that the other day. True story. I can't remember what the story was. I just remember telling my husband in the kitchen, I said, I should have stuck with that the first time because I knew that I had a problem with this. And then I went around, tried to tell myself, I'm going to allow this to do differently. And then I said, Jennifer, just knock that off. You just knock it off. Don't do that again. If you make a decision and your gut tells you that, you just let it be. Let it die. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
Good advice. All right, got some fun questions I want to ask you. These are lighthearted. You're not even going to have to think that hard. But maybe you will because you might be like me and you're going to overthink this. All right. So you spend a lot of time in the hockey world with the kids. So what has competitive sports taught you about business and resilience?
Oh, heavens. You win some and you lose some.
That's right. Yes.
I hate losing. So even as a parent of player, and I was an athlete, competitive athlete, very much so myself. So, picking yourself back up, what lessons did you learn? Keep going, so.
I hear you. So what sport did you play?
I was a swimmer. Yeah.
Okay.
I was a big swimmer. So that was
good. Yeah. My kids have all we've done competitive. My middle child, mostly, she was in competitive soccer for a really long time. And then she was also a competitive runner and went to school for cross country and track. She was a really good runner. But my husband was also an endurance athlete and I was a runner for a short period of time. So I get that whole, I understand the competitiveness of it and not wanting to lose.
We're not. Us playing even a simple game of sorry over the holidays was hilarious. That's super flashing down cards. I'm sorry, not sorry, and the whole thing. It's
you're competitive. Like I tell this story. Like when my youngest was in high school, I bought him John Maxwell's book. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. I made him read it. Because we don't do very well losing around here. I'm like, sometimes you're just going to have to take the message. Like, what did you learn in this,
Yeah.
It's not always about, we're not even winning about every argument,
Listening and absorbing and learning so you don't lose twice. I mean, that's my motivation,
That's exactly. Take the message. All right. Tell us about Sherlock the dog, the Belgian Malinois. Tell us a little about him.
Like my Belgian Malinois. Heard his name there.
Because I know I grew up around shepherds, and they are very smart, disciplined. I mean, just amazing dogs. So I find you're a very disciplined person. So I'm guessing this is no different with the dog disciplining
Well,
the dog.
Belgian Malinois is like a shepherd on steroids. They're a little bit crazy. Well, Malinois owners will be like, they're a lot of bit crazy. But, during COVID, all the kids were home, and we had 4 dogs and lost them all in a time span of about 8 months, which was a bit crazy. I did not want another dog. I was not ready because, as we all know, it's always on the mom to do the dog raising.
Yes.
I'm using always there, which is a horrible word to use, but pretty much always. So I thought, here's my weighing my options is get a dog now, everybody's home, and maybe there's extra hands, versus I didn't want a dog and wait, but I had to do it on my own, and I knew I'd want one eventually. So in any case, I relented. No shelters were open, so we ended up getting a Malinois, and I'd had boxers for years, but still was entirely unprepared for the work of a Belgian Malinois. They are highly driven dogs. Yeah. So we are a couple of trainers, and I've become quite an astute dog trainer myself in the process by necessity. And he's fabulous. And he's a great guy. He just sent training, and we have to keep him busy so he doesn't get into trouble. And he's just wonderful. He's a great part of the family.
I've heard great things about them, and I didn't never grow up around them, but I did grow up around shepherds and Dobermans. And I will tell you, I don't know how you listening to. I never like to say I know how somebody feels, but the first time we got a pit bull, because we rescue all of our pets. The first time we got this pit bull, he was the greatest dog. I love this dog. He was like my loyal companion, followed me. When he passed, I was just devastated. But I do have another one. But let me tell you, the first time we got that dog, I did not know about pit bulls. And I realized in order to have a dog like that, you better have a very strong personality because they command discipline. They're very loyal, but very disciplined. And so I get it. And then we had a Catahoula too. Same thing. That dog had to be actively, we walked our dogs every day. They exercise every day because we just knew he would pace the house. He would drive us literally nuts if we did not get him outdoors for a run or a walk. I mean, I hear you.
We're totally built around the dog for sure. Vacations, everything. It's only a certain person can look after these breeds, So but I like a well-behaved dog. I'm not into dogs that pull or tug or jump or anything. So you have to put the work in. I always say if you can put good work in for the first 2 years, you've got a decade of happiness, God willing. So
I love it. Well, you're a great embodiment for discipline and routine and create. And yes, dogs thrive in structure and routine. And I tell you, just a funny story, my little pit bull, every morning they get up at the same time. She knows after she gets we feed her low carb food with chicken. She knows she gets a bone. And if my husband tries to mess the plan up and take her out to run before the bone, she won't go. She will not leave until she gets the it's like those teeth, like a dentist stick or whatever. She does not want to go until she has the freaking bone thing before they're just
what parent of the house. That's a habit you live with. Yeah.
Routine. All right. If you could describe, this is the last question. If you could describe your leadership style as a hockey position, what would it be?
Oh, I'm a forward. I'm a center forward. That's good. I would definitely know you're hockey. But that's too defensive. I want to be on the offensive. So definitely, I'm definitely the center. Yeah.
That's so awesome. You're hockey. I love it. It's great. All right, Zephora, if our audience wants to get in touch with you, maybe they want to follow you, they want to learn more about the company, maybe they want to reach out to you for services. Who knows? Where do we want to send them?
Well, they can go to Nami Inc., NAMAMIINC.com, our website. And I'd be happy to meet with anybody. One thing that we love doing is a way of presenting kind of an outreach is to do an audit on the website, social media, give them a handful of new ideas. They can walk away with it they like. Check out their SEO and see how they're appearing up on AI. Because search there is a big component at the moment, obviously. So, I would love to chat with anybody. We're always looking for people to speak with.
Awesome. And I'm curious, because I don't know that I've asked you this. How did you come up with the name for the company?
I lived in India for a year, and Nami reverence in Sanskrit. I studied Sanskrit there, and I love that the reverence is because we really embody that this is your business, and we're honored to be a part of the flow and the growth. And so we take that very seriously with high integrity and hard work.
I like it. I did not know that. I'm glad I asked you. I don't know why I didn't ask this before. Somehow we missed that. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, what? Where did that come from? How did they come up with that? That whole name. So this has been so awesome. I want to tell you. Thank you for your time, the fun conversation, sharing with us your journey, all of the good stuff. And we'll definitely, when we get the show notes put together, make sure we get some links in there so people know how to find you guys as well too. So fun.
I appreciate you. There goes my dog.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Real quick to our audience, we just want to say we appreciate you and thank you for tuning in today. Hopefully you're inspired by this episode. And if you are, you know what to do. Hit all the buttons, like, subscribe, share, comment, so we can keep sharing all this fabulous content. And as I always say, in order to live the extraordinary, you must start. And every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another, and we'll see you next time.